we are going to move on to testing our create project workflow features. We're going to add a QA column, and then we are going to move all of our tickets, our user stories, back to this column in QA so that way we can test each one. All right, so let's open up the first one and take a look. Users can create projects. All right, so projects have a user determined names and just optional description fields. Projects have completion statuses, which are based on the completeness of its features. All right, so we're gonna have a projects page that will load my projects. So let's start with logging in. And we will take a look. And yep, we have a projects page, and let's make sure it loads my projects. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure by adding a project, I'm gonna say to-do list, because what I think I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to try to create, like use the product and kind of test through that, okay? Let's see, a list, we'll say an application that allows users to plan tasks for their life. Create project. Okay, so it's when I load projects, it should load my users projects. All right, that makes sense. I should have an individual project box with name and description and status. Okay, so let's return. So we have name, description, and status. Okay, and then let's go ahead and shrink it because it says something about if you have room. All right, so looks good in terms of when the screen is small and large. All right, then we have create and add a project accordion component with a header, button, and body form. Okay, so here's my header, button, body form. Let's go ahead and make sure that looks good at all sizes, and it does. All right. So we want to be able to type in a project name and description, and we can see that the name is required and the description is optional. Okay, so I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to say test project 1, and we're going to leave the description blank, and it allows us to do that, and it looks good fully expanded, and it looks good when it's short. Let's go ahead and add another one, but I'm going to try this time to leave the name blank, and it says product name is required. I'm going to go fill in a description here, but still leave the name blank. That worked fine. I'm going to go ahead and just take let's do some lorem ipsum. I'm going to take like an entire sentence. Maybe I'll do 2 sentences and see what happens if I try to make a really long and I add it. All right, it's gonna add it like that, and still looks good. When, I mean, obviously this title doesn't look great, but it looks good in terms of as best as we can. I just, as a designer, I wouldn't recommend using a super long title, but who am I to judge? All right, so it looks like we can, and then if we reload the page, it saves everything. Okay, so it looks like that works in terms of where we're at so far. When we submit it, it adds the project. We refresh it, pulls up the data, so we're clearly saving it in the database, and it is adding correctly. Okay, and let's take a look at the success toast. So I'm going to say test project 2. This is my description of my test project 2. right? And then create project, and it says your project has been created, and test 2, long title, test 1, to-do list. All right, so I feel pretty good about user can create projects, so I'm gonna move it to done. All right, so the next one is that users can create features within a project. Okay, I'm gonna once again kind of pull this in, take a look, pull it out, still pleased. So now we want to click on project, and that should open an individual project page. Okay, so yeah, we have a create project page that gets it by the ID in here. So here's the project 20, and it gets project 20. So I clicked on to-do list, it opens to-do list. I click on test project 1, it opens test project 1. I open a super long name, it opens it for me. I open test project 2, it opens test project 2. So I feel good about that, okay? Then we have the name, the description, that looks good. Let's kind of pull it in. Still looks good, pull it out. Okay. So we have individual feature boxes with feature name and status. So let's go ahead and add that. So that's going to be adding this feature drop down with header button, add a feature. It works similar to or it works the same way as the add a project, and then it drops down feature. So I'm going to first try to make a feature without putting anything in. Feature name is required. I'm going to put in, this is my description of feature 1, add test before it, consistent, create it, still doesn't let me. So now if I add test feature 1, I create it. Okay, now we have this individual feature box and status. So let's make this smaller. It looks good still. Okay. We're able to submit a feature. All right, so now we're talking about, we were supposed to save it in a database, so on refresh, it pulls up still. And let's check out the success toast. So now I'm gonna try to do a longer feature title. And I'm gonna leave the description blank. And that still looks good to me. All right. So if I click on it, it then opens. So now we can go ahead and take a look. Okay, so something that I do see that I don't know if I love is the description. The description, I don't love how it looks, where like it's not centered to the button. But I'm thinking that the reason we did that was because we didn't want the button to move down with it. So I'm gonna check that out by making a new project with a long description. So I'm gonna say test project 3, and I'm gonna do a pretty long description. This, and go back, and I'm gonna add it. And that way we can see how it looks. All right, so test project 3. Okay, so yeah, so this is kind of how we want it to look when there's more than one line. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the height of this, and then I'm gonna see if I can make the line. See, I don't think I want to do that though. Dun, 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 dun. Just trying to think it through, see if that's what I want to do. I'm debating making the line height the height of this button, so that way the top line is always centered with the button, but I just feel like that might not be the best route. But I can see how that would look. Okay, so we're going to deviate. So I'm going to go to Trello, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to investigate placement of edit description button. It's not really a bug, it's not really a UI fix because I'm not sure if what I want to do with it, but it will kind of inform my decisions. So I'm going to go to this correct page, which is just going to be the individual project. and you can see the project description here. Okay, so let's go find one that's short or empty here, and that's fine. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to look at the height of this button. So it's 32 pixels. So then what I can do here is I can change this to line height is going to be 32 pixels. And you see how that centers this vertically, okay? But then I have to go back and now I have to find one that's longer, and you can see the description is now spaced out so that it is 32 pixels, okay? So the next thing that I'm going to do about this is I am going to look up if there's a way for Chakra UI. We are going to be figure out how many lines are showing. Okay. Looks like we can do truncate text with number of lines. Number of lines, responsive version. Or max width prop. So I guess we could try to look at what if I added, so if I got rid of this and instead I did number of lines 1. Well, that in itself is interesting. Okay, so then we're gonna do line height. I'm only gonna spend another minute on this because if I go over, see, it's truncated, which is nice, but I feel like I'd want to see the whole thing. So I'm gonna take the truncation away, and I think I'm just gonna leave the line height at 32 pixels, and I think we're gonna call that a day because it doesn't look bad, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep reviewing the features here. All right, and let's keep on keeping on. So when I add a feature, which I think we already added, was it this one? No. Also, excuse my dog if you can hear him barking up a storm. I'm gonna close the door real quick to my office. All right, so this is the one that we have the feature, and it looks like the features are being added nicely. Okay, I don't think I remember looking for the toast, so I'm gonna go ahead and add and look. So I'm gonna say test feature 2, and then I'm gonna say this is my description of test feature 2. Okay, then I'm gonna create feature, and your feature has been created. So that looks good. Okay, so if I open here, I see this is my description of feature 1, and we see that this is also not centered. So we are going to fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line height here. I'm actually going to copy this whole thing. And I'm going to go to features. It's on the feature modal. And it's going to be the description here. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to rename this as feature description, or the string there is no feature description. All right. And you can see that that moved down, so that's good. Now let's go ahead and go to one without a feature description. So here it says there is no description, so that looks good as well. And this is my description of feature 2. Okay, I'm going to grab some text and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to add long text feature, and I'm going to say paste and then create the feature. So let's go ahead and look at the long text feature and see how it looks. And honestly, I think it looks good. So we're going to say that that looks nice. All right. Now that we have several features, let's go ahead and check out the responsiveness of the add a feature. So this is kind of getting a little bit thin, but I'm hoping it switched soon. This looks good. That looks good still. All right, perfect. So I am going to say that the users can create features within their project. Looks good as well. All right, I'm going to pause here and I will return to check out the create user stories and create developer tasks in the next video.